All right, Mike, are you ready to get started?
I think so. I'll go ahead and let Brooks, our host and co-host, talk a little bit about Dati a little bit more. Um,
Yeah, but before I get started, I just want to introduce Carolyn Ware. She is a part, our new part of the BCC fam. She's going to be joining the management team. She is the LFS president this year, and in addition to representing the LFS board, she brings years of public folklore work in many settings. And for those of you who don't know, she teaches folklore at LSU in the English department and has two long-term research projects. And she has been researching Louisiana folklore since the 1980s. And when she focused on the role of women in the rural Mardi Gras, that was her actual dissertation. And we're just really, really excited to have her a part of the BCC team. So please give a nice virtual round of applause for Dr. Carolyn Ware. And if she wants to, there is no pressure at all, but she can introduce herself. And thank you so much for joining us. And we're just excited to have you, Carolyn, in your expertise. But today we are focusing on artist spotlight, Ms. Dati Ratliff. She is not only an artist, but a retired Terrebonne Parish elementary teacher. This is one of her featured artworks. And she grew up in Chauvin. She paints scenes from her childhood on glass, and that tells the story of the scene on the back of the painting. And of course, like I said before, she has worked as a Terrebonne Parish elementary teacher for many years. So maybe Mike can show some more of her artwork. And there goes Ms. Dati. If you guys want to know more about her artwork, she has a nice Facebook link. I think Maida will put that down in the chat, but she also has a store. Her store is in Chauvin, but I do think that ever since Hurricane Ida, it may not necessarily be open. But you guys can find her artwork or see more of her artwork on Facebook by following that link. And I don't know about y'all, but it's very, very beautiful. I'm so gorgeous. Just looking at her artwork and just her memories right
significant
there,
local artist
laid out for everybody
great,
to enjoy.
beautiful art. I believe we will go ahead and get started with the formal part of our meeting. Brooks, hand it over to you.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you so much. Content for today. Of course, you guys know him. You guys love him. Dr. Gary LaFleur will be our speaker for the next hour, or figuratively 15 minutes, but you know what I'm saying. We're gonna do a hope for the coast because we like to be positive, and we're gonna do announcements, and then we're gonna head over to working group reports and just have a general discussion. But always feel free to share your thoughts in the chat and also share them with us, because we love to know what you guys think. And that's the whole point of this gathering, for us to communicate, for us to create a dialogue that we can take outside of here and, put it out there in the world and see what we can do, right? And I guess we're gonna go ahead and hit the poll question. The poll question for today is, which concepts do you expect to be taught to students graduating from Louisiana universities? So please check all that apply. Here are the options. A, the names of Louisiana's 5 biggest rivers. B, the geologic history of the Mississippi River delta lobes. C, the rate of coastal land in LA. The causes of coastal land loss in LA, that's D. E, the strategies to reverse coastal land loss. Or F, names of 3 communities threatened by coastal land loss. And you guys can choose as many as you feel is necessary. And then just hit submit, and we will tally that up and see what the results are.
And as usual, we try to kind of, and in fact, Dr. LaFleur was interested in learning a bit about this, but we try to tailor the poll question a bit to the speakers' themes. And I think it looks possibly as you might have expected, Gary, Dr. LaFleur. They are all important.
Makes sense. But I think there's a lot of students that graduate that don't know those things.
Yeah. So 60, there's two, like a tie, 69% for A and B. And the one that has the highest percentage is the causes of coastal land loss in Louisiana. So D, that's at 92%, and 86% say that the strategies to reverse coastal land loss, which is E, and 81% the rate of coastal land loss in Louisiana. So it looks like a lot of everything focusing on more so on land loss. So that's interesting, you guys. And also 75% the names of 3 communities threatened by coastal land loss. But I do agree that looks like a lot of us in this chat or in this group right now definitely believe that all of these things are extremely important. And just a second, Dr. LaFleur, not that many students probably know that in Louisiana universities.
Right. Thanks, y'all, for your responses.
Thank y'all. We're gonna probably go ahead and switch it over to Dr. LaFleur, but let me go ahead and give you guys a nice bio, just in case you don't know who the man of the hour is, of course. Dr. LaFleur hails from Eunice, Louisiana, where he was raised among the music of prairie Cajuns and rice fields at the top of the Cajun Triangle. He joined Nicholls faculty in 1998 and for 24 years has been escorting Louisiana students into the majestic habitats of Louisiana coastal wetlands. And I'll just say I've had the honor of taking his classes. I can vouch it's worth taking. And I'm not just saying that because I passed his class. Just saying. But besides actively conducting research, he also serves as director of the Center for Bayou Studies, and he is the coordinator of the Chauvin Sculpture Garden. But today he'll give us a more in-depth look at those courses and how he intertwines art with the science of the Bayou and beyond. So without further ado, please give a warm virtual applause for the man, the legend, Dr. Gary LaFleur.
Thank you.
All right. Dr. LaFleur, there we go.
That was very nice.
No problem. I got you.
Pulling up my slides here. Okay, it's good to be here. It's nice to see friends on the Zoom call, and I can even see some family members out there. I appreciate that. My name is Dr. Gary LaFleur, and I'm with the Center for Bayou Studies. I wanted you to know a little of my background so that maybe you know where I'm coming from in today's talk. So I started out my science career thinking about how animals make eggs, especially fish and frogs. I'm interested in reproduction and development, but that meant that I had to get to the marshes to collect my animals. And by getting to the marshes more and more to the coast, I began to become interested in the communities and the people that inhabit the coast, not just the animals. And that led me to being interested in a new initiative of Nicholls called the Center for Bayou Studies. Now, the Center for Bayou Studies is not just interested in the physics or the chemistry of the bayou, not just the plants or the animals, but even more interested in the cultures, the human beings, and evolution of lifeways that occurs along bayous and wetlands. The Center for Bayou Studies is interested in historical components of the bayou region and the coast, like ideas about Last Island, but we're also interested in the economy, how it is to be a working person on the coast right now, catastrophes like the Deepwater Horizon blowout. And we're also interested in introducing people, students, to tradition bearers, like Mr. Theo Chasson shown at the bottom with some of my students Now, some of the things I'm going to talk about today occurred along the coast. On this map that I got from Dr. John Ducey, you can see where Nicholls is. Nicholls is in a safe spot up the bayous. But some of the images I'm going to show you come from my work down at LumCon. That's Louisiana University's Marine Consortium at the end of Highway 56 down in Cocodrie, or at the Nicholls Coastal Field Station. Some of y'all might remember that as Nicholls Marine Lab at Port Fourchon, or on Grand Isle. We sometimes work at the Wildlife and Fisheries Research Station down there. So I wanted to give you some information about one of the things that I do. I have this fear. One of the things that I fear is that students will graduate from universities and not understand the coastal situation. And I feel like me as a parent, as a parent, as a professor, even just as a padna, we say around here, I feel like it's my responsibility to help my friends, my family, and my students understand the situation that we're dealing with on the coast. Because I can tell it's real easy to graduate, to grow up in Baton Rouge, even Thibodaux, Lafayette, and not quite have this down. Me and my coastal scientist friends, we have it down pretty well, but most citizens of Louisiana are not aware of the next 20 years of Louisiana, or 50 years, or what we're facing. So I'm going to share with you some of my ideas of how we can get that into some of the lives of our family and friends and students. And some of these are tricks. One trick is, even if you're not teaching coastal science, like me, I teach physiology. My physiology textbook does not have coastal science in it. Yet there's ways that you can push in important information like this. I teach students about the anatomy of the heart. When they come to my class on the left, they don't know too much about the anatomy of the heart. After about a week, they understand the anatomy of the heart enough to where they can draw this. They understand the physiology. They understand the pathway of the blood through the heart. And I tell them, okay, so you understand an organ. I want you to understand an organism. And I also want you to understand how organisms work with each other outside of their bodies. And this is not usually part of anatomy and physiology. But I tell them, this is sort of like part of your body. This is your ecosystem. And so even anatomy and physiology students, I expect them to understand where our bodies reside in this ecosystem. On the left, when students start my class, they don't usually understand where the Mississippi and the Atchafalaya is compared to their home, or exactly where Grand Isle is really on the coast. But by the time they leave my courses, just by pushing this in at the end of some classes, once a month, maybe a little bit if we run out of time, or we have a little extra time. So by the end of a month, they understand sort of like the anatomy of our coast, of the Barataria-Terrebonne estuary system. And by understanding the anatomy, which you could call geography, now they begin to understand the physiology of this big living system. I mean, the physiology of an estuary, you could call that ecology, right? So I'm kind of mixing my curricula here, but I feel like since this is important, it's on us to teach this to the people in our lives. Another example, if you can't slide it in that way, you can do it this way. These days in academia, we are trying to do a lot of service learning when we can. And so I've created a service learning event where I take my grad students that are learning about biomarkers, how to monitor changes in biological systems. We take them to Grand Isle. And it's almost like a bait and switch, because I tell them, you're going to teach second graders about barrier island habitats. But at the same time, the grad students are learning something too. We do this with the Nature Conservancy and Grand Isle Elementary. And we teach a real simple 3-step lesson on a barrier island, what the difference and importance is of the beach. Then we walk into the forest, the Chenier Forest of Grand Isle, and then we walk to the back of the marsh. We just teach them that barrier islands need these 3 components in order to be healthy. You know, if you're an educator, you know how this works. Okay, the second graders definitely learn something, but the grad students learn something too. And by the end of our time with the second graders, the grad students are presenting why they started to study biology. And even though their second graders were kind of recruiting them into Nicholls, but those grad students might, until this time, they might not have explained to anybody why they became a biologist. And so it sort of reinforces something you could call biophilia, or a love of biology. Before I take the grad students off the island, I make sure that we go over some cultural things. So the island is a lesson to me. You can talk about Kate Chopin's novel, The Awakening. You can look at art like this painting by Gannon showing how in the 1890s, Grand Isle was sort of proud that they were cutting down the trees on the island to make way for a nice beach. Luckily, they didn't cut all the trees down. Grand Isle is one of the last inhabited barrier islands of Louisiana that still has a chenier forest intact. I show these grad students that the oldest buildings on the island are these that are tucked up under the protection of the oak trees. They're not on the beach. They're these 100-year-old houses underneath the oaks. And I make sure that they meet tradition bearers like Jean Landry. Jean Landry works for the Nature Conservancy. She has family connections to the crew of Jean Lafitte. She knows all the ecology of the island, and she can also talk to students about what it's like to really live on an island that's right on the forefront of coastal land laws. Okay, I have a third example. Another way to do this, to teach what's important about the coast, is just go ahead and create your own dang course. You can do this at LumCon. LumCon invites course proposals every summer. So you could create a special topics course at your own university, or you could create a new course at LumCon perhaps. So I've had a little experience doing both of these. With my colleague, Dennis Saporsky, we created coastal photography, coastal landscape photography. And we taught this several summers at LumCon. We go all the way down to Louisiana University's Marine Consortium down in Cocodrie. And in 1 week, we do the course. Another course that I've done at Nicholls is called pirogue biology. So for coastal landscape photography, it's just 1 week. All right, so this is a quick thing. Every day we take students to a new part of the coast. And really, the priority is art. But while they're doing their art, they're also learning about the coast, concepts about coastal land laws. And by the end of the course, they understand the coast just as well as anybody. And we also get art like this. We were able to document pelicans, terns, and gulls on Wine Island, which more or less does not exist anymore. If you know where Wine Island is, you can find it, but it's about as big as somebody's patio. So we were able to document some life on the coast and also some death. Images like this cannot be gotten at Nicholls State University campus. You have to go to the coast. You have to get the people that you're interested in learning. You got to get them out there to see this. We've got images of Ile de Jean Charles before Hurricane Ida, right? These were important images to get, but not just landscapes. It was important to meet the people of Ile de Jean Charles. This is Mr. Edison Dardar, who still lives on the island after Hurricane Ida. But at this time, he still had his altar in place and he was proud. He invited us in to look at his altar. Now, after Hurricane Ida, that altar is not really standing anymore, but he's still on the island. The students got to meet a real islander. Now, in pirogue biology, students often say, well, can I use my canoe or my kayak? And we say, no, it's pirogues. The students are forced to sit in this unique cultural vessel of Cajun Louisiana, and they use it to get to parts of Louisiana that they usually have not been to. These are not far from Nicholls, yet they're kind of secret. This is a way over a month for students to be introduced to the estuary from the seat of a pirogue. And it's another way to sort of push these ideas into their heads while they're university students. And sometimes we invite friends. And so if you would like to do that, let me know. All right, I just went over a quick list of ways that I think us as people that understand the coast need to share these coastal concepts with family and friends and students if we can. I showed you how you can do that by making a small part of your class cover a coastal issue. Even if you're teaching math or art, or biology, you can push in a coastal idea. You can do that by creating a service learning event, or you can create a whole new class to do this and to concentrate on the coast. Whenever you're doing it, I hope that you can not just introduce concepts, but introduce students to the tradition bearers of the coast. Like here, Nicholls students on the bottom left are meeting Mr. Théo Chasson at the Ile de Jean Charles Marina. And on the right, they're meeting Mr. Wilton DeLawn, who was the caretaker of the Nicholls Marine Lab, also when it was for LumCon, and also now as the Coastal Field Station at Nicholls State University. So those are most of the big things that I wanted you to hear about, but I want you to put a few things on your calendar. Every first and third Wednesday in Thibodaux, we have an open Cajun jam that's hosted by the Cajun Music Preservation Society. This is at Gina's at the Legion in Thibodaux, first and third Wednesdays from 6 to 8. And this is with musicians that just show up and don't get paid. But on July 23rd, we're paying someone, Cedric Watson. He's going to put on a great show. It's part of the Swamp Stomp series from 6 to 9. Gina's at the Legion in Thibodaux. He's going to do French music, Zydeco music, and Creole music. Now, this is important. July 26th, the National Academy of Sciences is hosting the Managed Retreat in the U.S. Gulf Coast Region meeting at Nicholls State University. Everyone is invited, but you have to register for that. So that's going to be a pretty cool meeting to attend. And far in the future, in October 5th, we're going to help to host the Grand Reveille of Acadians. We're going to get help from the Louisiana Folk Roots Group. I saw Jeannie Solis is on this call. We're going to have symposiums, workshops, and music at Nicholls State University and at Gina's. I hope you can think about sharing some Bayou Culture Collaborative ideas with us at that. Last thing I wanted to remind you is that the Center for Bayou Studies will soon break ground, either late 2022 or maybe early 2023 as part of the Coastal Center at the Nicholls State University. We're going to be included in this Coastal Center. This is a plan. We're going to have a lot of space for research and engineering, but we're also going to have exhibits and we're going to have room for conferences too. So if you're interested in keeping up with that, you should check in with the Nicholls homepage. That's the Coastal Center to be built at Nicholls very soon, which will include the Center for Bayou Studies. I'd be happy to take any questions. That's it. Gary LaFleur, that's from me at the Center for Bayou Studies. And if you want to write me an email or something like that, I'd be happy to look at your questions, or maybe we can go over some questions and answers right now. Thanks for your attention.
Oh, man. Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. LaFleur. That was so awesome. And as expected, of course. Why wouldn't it be? But you guys, I hope that y'all really enjoyed that. But please, give Dr. LaFleur a warm virtual round of applause. Round of applause. It has to be said. It has to be done. But I want to go ahead and get started with the questions of the hour. Anybody has any questions, please go ahead and we'll get to you guys accordingly.
And we have dedicated a little more time to questions this gathering, so please do feel free to engage Dr. LaFleur in some dialogue here.
And also, don't forget to use the hand feature at the bottom of your Zoom screen, and it will, you raise your hand feature and we'll get to you guys. Don't know, I see David.
Yes, Jeremy.
Okay, I want to make sure. I want to put your name.
Wait. You work in Lafourche Parish and you can't pronounce Jeremy? Come on.
I don't work in Lafourche now. I work in Lafourche.
Where you at?
Well, unfortunately, right now I'm in Baton Rouge. I'm from Bastrop though.
Oh, okay. All right. Baton Rouge, I forgive you. Gary, great presentation. Very, very essential, important work you're doing, of course. But I just want to kind of interject. I'm on the Louisiana Academy Committee, and I don't think we've actually met. I did kind of see you at the in Fort at the Bridge folklore meeting. And your name, of course, came up along with Jeannie and John. So I'll have to We're gonna have to get together really soon because I'm sort of like the liaison person for some strange reason. To be in charge of being a liaison person with the Bush and Terrebonne parishes. So yeah, and I know John and I have been corresponding about that a lot. So we need to talk a little bit more about the details because it's coming up soon. There's some deadlines are coming, so we're gonna talk about promoting it and whatnot. And I guess Jeannie is a very good friend of mine, and John. We're kind of swimming in the same gene pool a little bit. So
Yeah, thanks for mentioning that. So, that's in English, we call that the Grand Awakening, and it really happens all over Acadiana. There's several
right.
things that are happening around the Lafayette region, but October 5th is the day that something is going to happen between Lafourche and Terrebonne.
Yeah, so we're gonna have to get just just on a sidebar, I guess you could say, get together and talk a little bit more about that. I have a meeting Monday with some of the other members of Louisiana Acadie, talk about advertising money. So maybe we can get some money. So y'all, we have some money has been given us this by the Lieutenant Governor's office and the Lafayette Convention and Visitors Bureau. So maybe we can help y'all with a little promotion, print up some stuff for y'all. So we need to talk more about that. So just want to congratulate you again. This is great. I'm very excited about this. About
Thanks,
the center
David.
that's being built. Also, I think it's like 50 years overdue, but hey, we'll take what we can get.
David, I'll interject. This is Jeannie, and well done, Dr. LaFleur. The Huval brothers, or a couple of them from Brobridge, have taken the lead on working on the Grand Réveil for October 5th, and that would be Brazos Huval and Chad Huval. So content and activities still to be defined, but they are taking the lead on that and to work with Cajun Music Preservation Society for the daytime part. So we'll talk offline about it.
See a question coming in from Dr. Doucet.
Hey, Gary, fantastic job, by the way. I really appreciate it. Something remarkable just happened, some synchronicity that I got to share with you because I know you're going to appreciate it. I just gave a lecture on the human genome, and I talked about something that happened 65 million years ago, independent of the genome, that didn't have a function, didn't go through natural selection, but all of a sudden we think it has a function. It's not an adaptation through natural selection. It's called exaptation, is the word we use. And immediately when I was hearing you talk and heard about your background, which I've known, but I didn't hear it in this context, exaptation is kind of what you experienced here when you moved to the correct side of the Chapalaya River. So my question to you is,
be careful. I have sisters out there.
I know, I'm looking at her. My question to you is, did you ever think you'd find the kind of niche you have in Chauvin and Cocodrie and Thibodeau and so forth when you took this job? And an auxiliary question is, did you have that kind of niche when you were growing up and going to school in the Eunice area?
Well, thanks for the kind words, John. You know, when I grew up in Eunice, I was a city boy because I lived in town. It's kind of one of those funny things. By the time I got to Baton Rouge, to big LSU, people thought I was a country boy because I was from Eunice. But I knew real country boys. Those were the farmers, like my friend Danny Brown. So I didn't quite have that niche, but like you and a lot of people our age, I was watching Jacques Cousteau and C-Lab 2020 on Saturday mornings. And so I was always interested in the coast. And it took me a long time. I went to several coasts, like to Port Aransas, Texas, St. Augustine, Florida, and Rhode Island, for me to size up that a lot of good education can be done in a small town on the coast. So I was real happy to get to this part of the coast, and I didn't quite see it coming, but I learned from a few of my teachers along the way, some of those coastal teachers, like this one guy who taught me fish biology. We did the work at Gulf Coast Research Lab, but he also brought the students to a few restaurants and he introduced them to some old shrimpers. And so I had sort of seen some of that activity in the past, that there's more to learn than just what's in the textbook. And sometimes those are the lessons that stick with you the most. So I certainly didn't come up with that kind of thing, but when you're thinking about coastal biology, I think there's a whole lot there that, in a way, there's a whole lot of teachers out there in the community that are available for students to learn from. So I really like tapping into that. Thanks for the question, Dr. Ducey.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ducey, as usual. Y'all bringing brilliance out.
I see Dr. Craig Colton
Craig,
has his hand up.
Mhm.
Hey, Gary, thanks for your presentation. Really appreciate it. Last week, I was at a virtual conference with mainly a bunch of historians who were talking about climate change and the issues that that presents to coastal areas, not just in Louisiana, but around the world. And one of the shortcomings of this event was they were preaching to the choir. And one of the purposes of this meeting was to try to figure out how humanities scholars can break through into the bigger conversations that the biophysical scientists are having. Do you have any thoughts or recommendations on how those of us in the humanities can better integrate what we do and win the attention and respect of people in the sciences? I mean, you're open to it. How are you seduced into thinking a bit more broadly, and how might we reach out to others?
Yeah, I definitely don't. I don't have the perfect recipe for that, and I kind of sense your there's a frustration that I recognize that too, and even I get that feeling often that we're preaching to the choir. I go to a lot of coastal meetings, and I often feel like we're not getting the important message out to the people that really need to understand it. We all are sort of beating a dead horse almost with our understanding of what needs to be done. But I also think that there's maybe some motivation or some opportunity for partnerships. So, like at the State of the Coast meeting that happens every other year, I know that you presented there, Dr. Colton, and there is a way for the scientists and the folks in the humanities that are doing science in humanities to come together. And Dr. John Ducey created a section of the Louisiana Academy of Sciences called Science and Humanities. So there's definitely people like you and other colleagues that are bringing this together. It's slow and it feels like it's one step behind, but I think we're making some progress. I hope you don't keep pushing on that. I'm pulling for you in that regard. Okay, I don't see any more hands up.
I was just going to say, we're going to keep plugging away.
I think the Center for Bayou Studies is maybe part of that answer too. I mean, we want to bring those different curricula and those different disciplines together. And when Nicholls came up with the idea of the Coastal Center, that was one of the top priorities, even though you don't think of it necessarily as a priority when you think of coastal science. But right from the start, Nicholls knew that they wanted to have a component of the Coastal Center devoted to the humanities, devoted to the human dimension of the coast, to communities. Okay, I see Jeannie's got her hand up.
Yeah, Jeannie.
Thank you. So I guess for many years of my career, I've been involved in the culture of health. And I think that has shifted, especially in the past couple of years in our Bayou parishes and coastal region. Right now, the kickoff is Monday for statewide for the next iteration of Louisiana Department of Health State Health Improvement Plan. So it's an opportunity for this collaborative to just make sure we're talking about changes in the culture of health. We know behavioral health are big issues, but the fisheries, everything that has changed in the coast impacts our health in a lot of ways. So I don't know that I have a question. I just wanted to put it on the radar that all of us have an opportunity to give input to the State Health Improvement Plan. It's a 5-year plan. This is only the second one that'll be occurring in the state. And so we need to make sure that we have the coastal issues represented in the culture of health in our region and improving it in the next couple of years.
Thanks, Jeannie. I think a lot of us that work on the coast see an environmental impact with coastal land loss. You can see an economic impact. but it's a little more nuanced. But most of us notice that, there is a health impact when you are exposed to disaster after disaster and storm after storm starts to accumulate, and you can see effects starts to affect people's health. So we're certainly interested in the science of that as well. We don't want that to be unrecognized. So that's another tough part about living on the coast. But it's like, I think the more we talk about it, and the more it's studied, and the more it's talked to, that it's recognized, seems like maybe we can get to the heart of the matter and be ready for it.
Anyone else would like to raise your hand, and now's your chance, and then I'll hand it back to Brooks.
Hope for the Coast. This is where we like to get a little positive about everything, you guys. There's a lot of stuff going on in the world right now. So I mean, Mike, what's your hope for the coast? And anybody else, y'all hope for the coast, please leave them in the chat. And we have enough time, I believe. Y'all can correct me if I'm wrong, if y'all want to raise y'all hands again and say anything hopeful that you have in mind for the coast.
Yeah, I can mention real quick that in the past, our format has included what we call the deep question. After our gathering last week, in which and again today, evident today, the speakers are beginning to engage people to a point, and there's a dialogue and a conversation going on that, at least for the moment, we are allowing for some extra time for discussion and for the speaker, rather than our prior deep question segment, although we may be returning to that in the future. My hope for the coast is everything I've been a part of with the Bayou Culture Collaborative, with the gatherings, with the working groups and the progress that they are making, and the enthusiasm of people for this work. So I can really say it's kind of restored my faith in coastal humanity. Gary, did you have anything?
My hope for the coast is that I think there's a lot to celebrate about the coast. All right. I feel like much of the time when we're together, we're sort of talking about the tough stories of the coast. Like there are some threats and there's some struggles, but there's a lot to still celebrate, and there's a lot of beauty on the coast still and in the wetlands. And maybe you can put that on a priority for you to see. I mean, I kind of want to see the Grand Canyon one day, and I sort of want to see the redwoods as well. But there's a lot of beauty here that you could take a weekend to explore with your favorite person, and that might go a long way. The people and the wetlands and the places of the coast that you might not have been thinking about in the past. Maybe you can bump that up in a part of your priority list over the next year.
Well, now any announcements? I know that we're going to be moving slowly into the working group reports and everything like that. But if you have any announcements, please, once again, raise your hands virtually, or you guys can leave that in the chat for us. And Mike, do you have any announcements you want to get started before we head over to the working groups?
No, there are a couple of working group meetings scheduled at the moment. Please, I believe one or two, I have to go back, sorry, and look, but I always post those, or I've made Owens, or it does, on the Louisiana Folklore Society page. You can go to louisianafolklore.org, I believe, and or just the Louisiana Folklore Society page. And there will be announcements about any upcoming meetings, working group meetings. And please, when these meetings are going on, it's not, it's a welcoming atmosphere. Whether you think you may be fully aware of what people are talking about or not, please join in. Everybody's voices are important. And, there's no need to feel as if you're not informed enough to be a part of things. Oh, there we go. Thank you, Maida. Maida just posted the upcoming upcoming meetings that are scheduled. And again, those are always posted on Louisiana Folklore Society webpage. Maida Owens, a member of our team, and with the Louisiana Folklife program, is going to be talking to us about a subject that actually several of the working groups are kind of addressing as well. You know, the circumstances, the situation here in coastal Louisiana, or statewide, excuse me, especially in the issues that Maida talks about. You know, there's a national conversation that needs to be going on, and especially within the other, you know, ecological regions and areas, estuary environments, but, you know, nationwide, especially with some of the population shifts that will be happening over our lifetimes or our children's lifetimes. I don't mean to put you on the spot, Maida, but is there anything else you'd like to talk about upcoming for your July 22nd presentation?
Yeah, I can add. I'm going to draw from a workshop that I've been doing, trying to get cultural people, you know, people who are more coming at from a cultural point of view than the environmental point of view, to help them get involved and inform them of the basics. So we wanted to share this information through the gatherings, even though many of you will know a good portion of this. But I would love to hear a discussion about the strategies that I've come up with, and would love to get feedback. You know, am I neglecting something, or am I wrong about something? Because, you know, I'm definitely not the expert, but because of the last few years, I've kind of had to learn the field, and this is kind of my assessment of it. But I would love to have a dialogue about communicating all this to the non-environment, you know, not the scientist, but beyond.
Thank you, Maida. Appreciate that. Yeah, so just gonna reiterate what Mike says. Look, you guys, we have a lot of fun in these gatherings. So we'd like for y'all to come back so y'all can listen some more. Listen to what Maida has in store for us. And that, just a reminder, that date is July 22nd at 12. And the topic is putting Louisiana in the national context. And again, I did see somebody ask about putting a link from one of the groups in the chat, but you can always head over to louisianafolklore.org and you can join that. You can join the groups by just simply leaving information. We'll send a Zoom link to that directly to your email, or you can always email Mike or one of the conveners, and they'll be happy to give you that information as well. You guys, just to kind of reiterate, culture and coastal planning, the convener for that is Theo Hilton, and July 6th at 3 for 1 hour, we'll be having their meeting. And I believe we have Preparing Receiving Communities. Tracy Birch is the convener for that group, and their meeting will be July 11th from 4 to 5. So, you know, you guys, once again, we like to keep this stuff updated. And if you do have any interest in joining these groups, please let the conveners know or let Mike know, or you can always head over to louisianafolklore.org, and we'll be happy to give you guys that information, so long as you guys sign up, and we'll send you guys a Zoom link to that email.